All right, so we're diving into American Beauty today, and wow, I've got to say the analysis you sent over is really something,
Yeah, it's a film that really makes you think.
definitely.
Yeah.
And well, one of the things that jumps out right away is how it tackles the American dream.
Yeah, and not in a straightforward way. It's more like it's holding up a mirror to the whole idea.
Yeah, like it's showing us the cracks in that
Oh.
perfect, picture-perfect image, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like on the surface, you have the house, the family, the material
The
success,
white picket fence, the whole 9 yards.
but underneath it all, there's this sense of unease,
Yeah.
this emptiness.
And you see that so clearly with Lester, right?
Okay.
Like he has everything he's supposed to have.
But he's miserable.
Absolutely. And it's not just him, Carolyn, too, with her obsession with appearances.
Oh yeah, she's a perfect example of how chasing the American dream can become like a trap.
Like she's trying so hard to project this image of success.
And it's eating her alive.
And it's interesting because even Angela, who at first glance seems to embody the ideal,
Right, the American beauty, so to speak.
exactly, even she is revealed to be deeply insecure.
The film really dismantles this idea that achieving the American dream equals happiness.
It's like it's saying, look closer. There's more to the story.
And that idea of looking closer is so central to the film.
It is, yeah. And it makes me think of Ricky and his fascination with the plastic bag.
Oh, yeah, that's such a great example. It's like he's seeing beauty where most people wouldn't even bother to look.
Exactly. And it connects to that bigger message, right? Like finding meaning and beauty in the unexpected.
Absolutely. It's about challenging those preconceived notions of what's valuable or beautiful.
And then you have the characters themselves, each one grappling with their own identity.
Yeah, it's like they're all trying to figure out who they are in this world that has all these expectations for them.
You have Lester with his midlife crisis, Carolyn with her carefully constructed facade.
Jane caught between her parents' dysfunction and Angela's influence.
It's like each character reflects a different aspect of that struggle.
And the film doesn't shy away from showing how those struggles can manifest in destructive ways.
It's like everyone's searching for something, but they're going about it in all the wrong ways.
And that's where the film's critique of the American dream gets really interesting.
Yeah, because it's not just about the material aspects. It's about the whole system of values.
Right, like Lester's rebellion, it's not just about wanting to be young again.
It's about rejecting a life that feels meaningless.
Exactly. And Carolyn, she's so consumed by this need for external validation.
That she's lost touch with her own happiness.
It's tragic, really.
But then you have Jane, who's trying to find her own way amidst all this dysfunction.
And she finds solace in Ricky, who represents this completely different way of being.
He's like the antithesis of everything the other characters are striving for.
And yet he seems to be the only one who's truly content.
Yeah, it's like he's found a way to exist outside of those societal pressures.
And that makes him both fascinating and a little bit dangerous to the other characters.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, shifting gears a bit, I want to talk about the visual language of the film.
Oh, yeah. The cinematography is stunning.
It really is. And the analysis you sent, it points out how even the color palette plays a role.
Yeah, like the contrast between the way Lester's office is lit
Which is very stark and sterile.
versus his fantasies, which are all soft and dreamy.
It's like visually representing his desire to escape.
Exactly. And then you have that recurring motif of characters being framed by windows and doorways.
Like they're trapped.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it adds to this overall feeling of confinement,
And then there's the color red.
which pops up everywhere.
Lester's car, Carolyn's roses,
Yeah.
that iconic shot of Angela on the bed of rose petals.
Red is definitely a loaded color in this film.
That like it represents passion, desire, even rebellion.
All those things that are simmering beneath the surface of these seemingly perfect lives.
Speaking of symbolism, we've got to talk about the roses.
Oh yeah, the roses are key.
They're so beautiful, but also so fragile.
And they tie into the film's exploration of appearances versus reality.
Like Carolyn's obsession with her roses is a reflection of her own carefully constructed image.
Right. And then you have the roses in Lester's fantasies, always associated with Angela.
Representing this idealized, unattainable beauty.
It's such a clever way to highlight the tension between genuine beauty and the manufactured kind.
Which brings us back to that idea of looking closer, right?
Yeah, like the film is constantly challenging us to see beyond the surface.
Man, that look closer bumper sticker on Lester's desk.
It's like a direct message to the audience.
It is. Like a call to action to engage with the world in a more mindful way.
To find the beauty and the meaning that's often hidden in plain sight.
I love that. We've covered a lot of ground here, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
We've laid a good foundation, though. There's still so much more to explore.
Definitely, like the film's lasting impact and what it says about the human condition.
That's a conversation for next time. So
Right.
much more. Yeah. Like, one thing that really struck me reading through this stuff is how much American Beauty still resonates today.
Right. It's like, even though it came out over 20 years ago, it's speaking to something that's even more relevant now.
Exactly. Especially with social media and everything. It's like we're all living in this kind of performance culture now.
Totally. It's like that pressure to project a perfect image. It's everywhere. Like Carolyn with her roses, remember?
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like we're all caught up in this game of trying to look successful and happy, even if we're not.
And the film seems to be warning us about the danger of that, right?
Yeah.
Like losing yourself in the pursuit of external validation.
Absolutely. It's a theme that's, well, it's more relevant than ever, I think.
One thing I wanted to touch on is the controversy surrounding Lester and his infatuation with Angela.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
It is. And I'm curious how you think the film handles it.
Well, it's definitely a delicate balance. I mean, the film doesn't shy away from showing how messed up Lester's behavior is.
Right, it's not like it's condoning his actions.
No, not at all. But it also doesn't just condemn him outright either.
So it's more about raising questions than offering easy answers.
Exactly. It's like it's asking us to consider the forces that drive someone like Lester to those extremes.
And it's interesting how the film uses his journey to critique those societal pressures.
Like that narrow definition of success that's so often associated with the American dream.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Lester's rebellion, however misguided it is, it's a direct response to that.
It's like he's saying, screw this, I'm not playing by your rules anymore.
Even if he goes about it in a completely self-destructive way.
Yeah, which is part of what makes it so tragic, but also thought-provoking.
It makes you wonder if there's another way, right? Like a way to find fulfillment without buying into that whole system.
And that's where Ricky comes in, I think.
He represents a different possibility, right?
Yeah, like a way of being that's not driven by those external measures of success.
He finds beauty in the ordinary.
And he seems genuinely happy.
Like he's found a way to exist outside of all that pressure.
Exactly. And that makes him a really interesting counterpoint to the other characters,
It's like he's holding up a mirror to their discontent,
showing them that there's another way to live.
even if they can't quite see it.
Right, exactly. So while the film is definitely critical of the American dream and all that it entails,
It also offers this glimmer of hope
through Ricky,
that maybe there's a different path.
a way to find genuine happiness without losing yourself in the process.
And it's not just through the characters that the film conveys this message.
Right. The whole thing is so well crafted.
But even the music plays a role.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like that haunting piano theme, remember?
It just adds to the emotional weight of everything.
And the use of popular music, too. It creates this interesting contrast between the generations.
Like it's reflecting those themes of freedom versus repression that run through the whole film.
It's amazing how every element works together to create this really powerful experience.
American Beauty is definitely a film that stays with you.
It makes you think, it makes you feel, it makes you question everything.
And it challenges us to look at the world in a new way.
To see the beauty that's often hidden beneath the surface.
And to connect with our own humanity and the humanity of others.
Which is something we all need a little bit more of these days, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think we've done a pretty good job of unpacking the film's major themes and all that.
Definitely.
But there's one thing I keep coming back to, and that's this idea of looking closer.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's like the film's central message, almost.
And I'd love to delve into that a bit more in our final segment, like what it actually means for us in a practical sense.
How we can apply that look closer philosophy to our own lives.
Exactly. I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. You know, what strikes me is how American Beauty, it's not just this like cynical take on society, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely like hope in there too.
It is. It's like it's acknowledging the darkness, but it's also saying like, hey, there's beauty to be found if you look for it.
Exactly. Like even in these characters who are all kind of messed up in their own ways, you know?
Yeah, and that's where that idea of looking closer really comes into play, right?
Totally. Like it's not enough to just glance at the surface. You got to dig deeper.
But like, what does that actually look like in our everyday lives?
That's a good question. I think it starts with being more curious about people, like really trying to understand them.
Instead of just judging them based on like first impressions or whatever.
Exactly. Like everyone has a story,
Right.
right? And those stories are usually way more complicated than we realize.
So it's about like challenging those assumptions we make about people.
Yeah, for sure. Like, instead of labeling someone as successful or unhappy just based on what we see,
Try to understand, like, what's going on beneath the surface.
right, because everyone's carrying their own baggage, dealing with their own stuff.
And a lot of times the most beautiful things are hidden, you know? Like
Mm.
that plastic bag Ricky films.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like he's seeing beauty where no one else would even bother to look.
And that's kind of the point, right? Like, beauty can be found anywhere if you just open your eyes.
Absolutely. But the question is, how do we actually do that? How do we stay present and really see things?
Especially in a world that's so full of distractions, right?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it takes a conscious effort to, like, slow down, disconnect from all the noise.
Just be present in the moment.
Exactly. Pay attention to the details, the little
The
things.
stuff we usually just tune out.
Right. And approach everything with, like, a sense of curiosity and wonder.
It's like retraining your brain to see the world in a new way.
And I think that's what American Beauty is ultimately trying to teach us, right? Like, to look closer,
Not just at art, but at life itself.
to see the beauty in the everyday, the connections between us,
And to recognize that everyone is struggling in their own way.
and that we're all in this together.
So it's not just a critique, it's like a guide to living a more meaningful life.
Yeah, like a reminder to appreciate the little things and to connect with each other.
And to find that beauty that's often hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. American Beauty, it's like a call to wake up and really see the world.
And to see ourselves, too.
Yeah. And maybe if we all did that, the world would be a little bit brighter.
So to everyone listening, we've explored a lot today, but the real journey starts now. What will you look closer at in your own life?